Welcome to Rotary and Serving Our Community. We're going to take a look today at one of those special features that Rotary does. We are a service organization that do a lot of benefits and good within the community. Today we're going to be looking at how we do that. That is done through grants and the grant process, how these are funded. And with me today I have Bruce Howard, who is our local Rotarian expert on grants.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Sure, thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Bruce.
I'm from the Rotary Club of Cambria. Been a Rotarian for almost 30 years. Privately employed, have a wife of 20 years and a son at UCSC in his second semester, and a 29-year-old daughter with 2 kids married to a cop living in New Zealand.
Very good. Okay, and how about Rotary? How did you get involved with Rotary?
Well, actually, through Uncle Joe. My uncle was district governor. My dad invited me to lunch. My uncle and my dad invited me to lunch, and I came in my flip-flops and shorts, and it was his district conference. And Art Linkletter was the MC, and I was sitting in the audience and of course up close to the stage because I didn't realize that I was at the honored guest table, and Art Linkletter asked for Bruce Howard to come to the stage, and I was looking around to see who else was at
Bruce
my
Howard.
name, and my dad gave me a Paul Harris.
Wow.
And this is like 30-some years ago. Paul Harris is a $1,000 award that goes to the Rotary Foundation, which we're going to talk about. And they kind of hooked me from then on.
Wow, that's great. So how much of a part of that Rotary that you've enjoyed has come from projects, doing projects specific?
Well, the one that first captured my wife and I, a past district governor of our district, Anil Garg, was doing a National Immunization Day, polio eradication. You've done a show on polio already. Is a priority of Rotary, and he invited a group of us from our district to go to Uttar Pradesh in northern India for polio eradication. And I asked my wife, and she said, absolutely not, I'm not going. It was in 2003, and we ended up going, spending a life-changing time there. I mean, we saw what the world was and what the world needed, and came back to where we live in Cambria, California, came back to our comfortable house in Cambria where you could turn on water and you could drink it, and there's sanitation and electricity, and decided that we needed to be more involved. So I was a Rotarian. I was in the Rotary Club of Cambria for a while before I became a Rotarian, right, as we say in Rotary.
Very, very true. So that's, we talk about it's the Rotary moment then.
That was a Rotary moment thing.
And that is amazing, astounding. As far as the trip that you took to India, what else did you see there as far as how the foundation worked, how Rotary was part of that process? Well,
it's actually everywhere there. It's everywhere here also, and we don't see it and we don't know it. But there it's really prominent because it's a developing country. So the medical clinics, the ambulances, the water projects, the water wells, the orphanages. I mean, pretty much Rotary Foundation was everywhere there and very visible. Again, it's visible, it's here also, but it's not as visible. It's in our communities, as you know, with the work that we do quietly within our communities, but in India and in most developing countries I've been, it's way more visible. And you know, that makes you proud that you can do something. Again, I'm privately employed in Cambria, California, so what could I do to impact our world? Rotary gives me facility to do that, and my wife and I are together. She's a Rotarian also.
Great.
Past president of our club, and she's as involved as I am.
Good. Tell us a little bit about the structure of the grants, how that works, the process on selecting a project specific, and how that funding comes about when you do a grant.
Well, I'm going to try to keep it simple, and it is simple, but we use acronyms in Rotary, and I'm going to try to not use any acronyms.
Okay.
So please kick me under the table if it is to be.
Will do.
Basically, Rotary clubs are almost autonomous. We're connected to each other through Rotary International and through the Rotary Foundation. So there's 2 different entities in Rotary. Rotary International, which is the operational side, is how I view it, and Rotary Foundation, which is the charitable giving side. All of us, all of the different clubs contribute in their own ways. So to the Rotary Foundation I'm talking about right now. So when we were in India, they did a thing where they had a little box and they called it Sunshine, and they would pass the box around to their members giving sunshine. In Nigeria, they opened a book, and they would pass the book around, and people would put the naira, the local currency, in the book. That money from around the world, from all the different clubs in the world, and all the different fundraising projects, goes to the Rotary Foundation. In a nutshell, the Rotary Foundation keeps that money, puts it in a holding pattern for 3 years. All the interest that's earned operates all of Rotary Foundation business, and then 3 years afterwards. So 100% of the donations to Rotary go to end projects. At the end of the 3 years, they give back to the Rotary districts. Our district is 70, how many clubs? 73?
74 now.
74 clubs, from China Lake to Thousand Oaks to Cambria, California to Paso Robles. And the Rotary Foundation will give back that money, half of that money, and then the district divvies it out with the oversight of the Rotary Foundation. And there's 2 types of grants, and basically one's big, called global grants, and one is smaller, called district grants. That's not necessarily accurate,
right.
But for our purposes here, that's good enough.
That sounds good. We talk about the money or the funds coming back every 3 years. What you're saying then is that it's 100% return based on a 3-year return.
It is indeed.
Great.
Again, I don't know, the model that we have, that the operational budget comes out of the interest only, so 100% of what you give to the Rotary Foundation ends up in a project. I don't know if anybody has that model. I think it's a great model.
So we actually aren't looking at, say, contributions to the foundation. We are actually looking at investing it, because it comes back directly to grants.
Good point. I'm going to use that, actually. I've never used that before.
Oh, thank
I like
you.
it.
Good. We have a few examples of some projects that you did. If you want to go through those, we could take a look at those. You supplied me with probably, looks like about 8 or 9 pictures here. Let's start with the first one. That looks like a project in possibly Africa?
In northern Nigeria, actually.
Okay.
So when we went to India, the first time we went to India on this National Immunization Day, we decided that we wanted to do more immunizations. I thought it would be a worthy thing for my wife and I and our family, because we shared it with our kids, to be part of polio eradication. Only one disease has ever been eliminated in the world. That's smallpox.
Right.
And so I thought this was a worthy cause. When we were in India, there was an outbreak in northern Nigeria that spread everywhere throughout Africa. So we decided that we would go to northern Nigeria. So I asked around for who was leading the next trip to northern Nigeria, and I found out there was no one. So my wife and I put together a team, as Rotary allows you to do. Before we got there, there was a lot of dissent with the local. It's a Muslim area, like 100% Muslim. It's Kano, Nigeria. It's a 5,000-year-old trading city from the caravans coming down across the Sahara. A lot of dissent, including some of the political leaders and some of the religious leaders back then in 2004. This gentleman, they took us to what they call KPVTA. It's the Kano Polio Victims Trust Association. And there was a gentleman that ran it, that was a founder and director. Aminu Ahmed was his name. And before we got there, he assembled a parade of polio victims. And polio is prevalent in this part of the world, so there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, they call them creepers. I know that's an offensive term to us, but that's what they call them. And they had a creeper parade to try to tell people, get your kids immunized, don't let this happen again. So when we were there, we did the immunizations, but we also went to KPVTA and got to meet Aminu. Aminu, in Nigeria, polio comes to you because of bad juju. So if you have a child that has polio, it's because the parents did something bad. So what you do if you're a parent is you hide that child and you don't let them out. And when they get 16 or 17 years old, you kick them out. So they have no education, no skills, no social skills, no ability to do anything. And all of a sudden they're 16 or 17 and they're on their own. Aminu started the Kano Polio Victims Trust Association in order to make those polio survivors self-sufficient. And they make wheelchairs that are hand cranked. They do a whole lot of things, but the primary business is wheelchairs that are hand cranked, and they do taxis to make them to use by hand for the people to earn a living. We were completely blown away. Aminu, the first rule at KPVTA is if you join KPVTA, you're automatically kicked out if they catch you begging. Can't beg. And if they catch you, you're out. We wanted to become involved with that, so getting back to your question, long-winded way back to your question, sorry.
No problem.
The first grant we did was for, I think, DES, because the parents that were members of KPVTA, the polio survivors, have kids that don't have polio. And they're going to school, and it was a special school, and they had no desks and no school supplies and no uniforms. They wear uniforms. It was an English colony, so they do the traditional English uniforms. So we paid for desks. We bought school supplies and did what we called scholarships, but it was actually the uniforms and the school supplies. We went to a girls' college. These are all separate grants there. We went to a girls' college in Kano, and the girls had no restrooms, no sanitation. So they would just go in the bushes. They had restrooms, but they were holes in the ground, and they were in complete disarray. And they had an Interact Club, which, as you know, is a high school Rotary, basically. Our local high school in Cambria, California, has a very strong Interact Club, and we connected them, and they worked together to build new sanitation facilities for the girls' college in Kano, Nigeria. Now, we're currently into larger grants there, and the larger grants are vocational training for the members of KPVTA. One is for welding. We bought a bunch of torches and equipment and training for them in how to make the bikes and how to outfit the cars. And we also, for the females, we did, and sorry about the sexist reality, but that's just how it goes, for dyeing fabric and for making patterns and creating clothing. The other project we did after those two, vocational training project, was to teach them a little bit of English and how money worked, because most of these people didn't know how to money, so they can't do commerce without knowing how to give change. So we did a class on how to train people a little bit of English in case people were English speaking, and how to do commerce. That's one example. Long-winded, but one example.
That is great. One thing I think is pretty fascinating, and people probably want to know about this. When did you go to Nigeria for the NID?
First one was, I believe, 2005.
Okay.
We went 2005. We led a team 2005, 2006, 2007, and then my cousin Brad was doing another one. He's a travel agent, so he knows. Actually, I've never done anything like that. So when he said, "I'll do that for you," I said, "Great, you go."
Yeah.
Perfect. Because nobody makes any money. This is not This is not a commercial venture.
Right.
In fact, you have to pay your own way.
Right.
Brad took over, but the last year that we were going was when the volcano happened in Iceland.
Oh.
And we had to cancel that trip. It was literally, we were loading up the car to go. And since then, there's been problems with Boko Haram, and they've told us it's not safe. In Sao Paulo, just now meeting Jonathan Mujabi, who's the past Rotary International president, he was the first time he said it's now safe, please come back.
Okay.
So we'll see if we get back there.
Good. And then currently, and well actually now, Nigeria is considered polio free as far as
it was
no cases.
When we first went, because of this outbreak, it was the most polio endemic part of the planet. India was making progress at the time, but Nigeria had fallen back. They had a setback, and it was the most polio endemic. And lots of people told us not to go, including Otto Estelle. Past District Governor Otto told us not to go. But he had only been in the south, and I had been to the north because I was a flight attendant.
Okay.
And we used to take Hajis, we used to take Muslim pilgrims from northern Nigeria into Saudi Arabia for the Hajj. So I had been there a lot, and I knew it was safe. So that's why I headed up the team to go there. And now polio. There's been no polio in Nigeria for over a year. No polio in India for over 3 years now, or 4 years.
4 years now.
4 years.
Yeah.
And still endemic in only 2 countries.
Right.
And as you have briefed everyone, I'm sure, when we started the project in the late 80s, there were 1,000 new cases of polio a day. Started with a grant, by the way,
Right.
that project.
Right.
And last year in 2015, there were 74 cases in the world.
Yeah.
So we're this close.
And that is a good success story once we get there, but we're almost
there.
there.
A grant, and it started with what we're talking about.
A Rotary grant.
A Rotary grant.
A Rotary grant. Very good. Some other pictures you brought with us. Looks like this is the project in India, right? It's with the Piali School?
Yes, with Deepa, a woman after all of our hearts.
Correct.
The very interesting woman. She lives in San Ynez. She's a past district governor, like Wade is, which means they were basically the administrative head and inspirational head for our district for the 74 clubs that Wade was talking about. She is from Bengal, outside of Calcutta, in eastern India. And it's just an interesting story. Her high school principal was Sister Teresa before she became Mother Teresa, which is kind of a cool claim to fame. But she was educated and did great in life and had some successful vocations and ended up going back. She had always said she was going to go back and help the girls. In this part of the world, girls are actually throwaway.
Yeah.
We say they get sold into the sex trade at an early age, but in reality, it's not. What really happens is because that makes it sound like the parents don't care about their kids, and that's not accurate. The parents care deeply about their kids, so they will try to get them to a place where they could be fed and be protected. If it happens to be a 13-year-old girl and it's a 50-year-old man, so be it. At least they'll be safe. So she created PACE International, or PACE Universal, sorry. And the first school that she's doing, it was a girls' school in Piali. And it's focusing on girls now only because the girls need the most help. Boys, because the boys are the social security for the parents, boys are kind of covered. The parents will do all they can to make sure the boys get the education and get the tools they need, because that's how the parents will live when they're older and can't get their own vacation. So she created this school. She did a 3H. First, she created this school, and then she was finding that the girls would come from the village, and it was not a residential school at the time. Girls would come from the village, and they would have good education and good protein they would eat and good hygiene, and then they'd go home and they had dirty water and they were abused by their dad or their brother. She was seeing that it was a village problem and not just specific to the girls. So she did a large grant, which we called 3H grant, and she built wells throughout the village. They ended up capitalizing outside of the grant process a structure for PACE, for the Piali school. She asked a bunch of different clubs to participate. Our particular club, in the photos that you may be seeing, are from the sanitation facility that we built, that our club participated in building. And we've been there. When we went a couple years ago with our son, it was the first time he had been there, and Deepa was with us. And we're staying in Calcutta, and it's about an hour and a half drive outside of Calcutta, this village. And if you haven't ever been to India, if you go there, you will understand what we Rotarians do, because it's pretty amazing. But Deepa said, make sure Tommy sits in the front seat. And I was not putting it together why, and then we started going through the little streets. And I was, good idea.
Yeah, it's true, very true. Good, very good. That covers the PACE schools. I think it's outstanding internationally. Let's bring it back to community, within our communities here in our district in California.
I think, one of the cool things that I've heard that I didn't know, I was told this from other district leadership, and I don't remember who told me this, but La Conchita, the slides in 2005, the rescue dogs were acquired and trained in a grant project that was sponsored by South Korea. So, like I said, sometimes in our country we're not as visible as we are in developing countries. to those people that were being rescued by those dogs, I think we were very visible that day.
That's very true. We also had a program in the past on Women's Economic Ventures, and our partnership with them, basically $1 million grant for microcredit, helping develop communities here in our district.
That's what Heather put together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So that's another
there's just so many of
those.
these things. I mean, I wrote some down. Not just us, but several communities in our district. We did portable defib units. So I live in Cambria, California. We bought 4. There were no portable defib units in Cambria, California. So if you had a heart attack, the paramedics would get to you, and the facility was on the van, but not. So and we do easy stuff like scoreboards at the local high school.
Right. I know our club does a dictionary project where we give dictionaries to all of the third graders in Carpinteria and Summerland. It's
up to, Rotary is the most grassroots organization that I've ever been involved with. So it's up to the inspiration of the local Rotarian, really the local Rotarian. I mean, we do a thing at our club, and several clubs participate, that are the honor flights, which are honoring mostly at this time WW2 and Korean War vets by taking them back to DC to the memorials, introducing them, giving thanks. You know, the local congressman will thank them for their. It's a world to see these men. I've known I've been in Cambria for 30 years, and these guys I know in the community, 85-year-old, 90-year-old guys, standing in front of our club, weeping with gratitude for finally being thanked for their service in the Second World War or in Korea. It's pretty amazing.
That is very amazing. I would like to jump into the last picture. I've got a picture here with you at one of your club meetings. On that one, I was privileged to be the governor that year, and you guys had your, I believe, 40th anniversary of your club. I put this picture up there specific because the entertainment and the story that you told all focused around a fundraiser for a project. Do you remember that?
I have no recollection of what you're talking about.
That's great.
But I want to let people know, if that goes on television, in real life I'm thinner than that and I have more hair than that. I just want to make that really clear.
I got it. Let me see, what was that? I think it was either an ice cream sale or something like that. You were selling something
Smoothies? Was it?
It may have been the smoothie store. Yeah.
Every Rotary Club, Rotary is the most grassroots organization I've ever heard of. So if you have an idea in Rotary, as an example, there was the polio eradication started with, as I understand it, a pharmacist that had some extra vaccine, and a friend of his that knew a guy that had an air freight company. And they took it to the Philippines in the late 70s. There was a guy that, as I understand it, had a hardware store and wanted to do something for disasters. Got together some plastic bins, put a tent in it, put water purification in it, put a cook stove in it, a bunch of different things. We now call that shelter box, and 100,000 people a day sleep under shelter boxes.
Wow.
So it's very, very grassroots. Every club comes up with its own projects. Every club comes up with its own methodology of earning money, including the famous Cambria smoothie booth. So that might be what you were talking about.
That's what it was. I do remember the story now. I put up 2 more pictures. These pictures actually came from Virginia when I served as the president's rep. And that picture shows a fundraiser that actually raised $42,000 for the polio eradication process. Now they're close to a Bristol Motor Speedway. That's one of the icon areas of their district, and so what they did was they actually created these cardboard cars, and they had races. Now the way the car moved or went around the quote track was that you had to fundraise to move your car forward.
Oh yeah, that's good.
It was a pretty good one. It was pretty wild actually.
Teams? They have teams?
They had teams. It was sponsored by clubs, I believe.
Yeah.
So each club or
Had a
each
car.
had bought a car. You had to buy the car. You get the cardboard cutout. You could design it any way you want. Some of the badging that you see on the car itself were sponsors for the cars. As much as $4,000 or $5,000.
It's like NASDAQ.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Now that was probably one of the most unique, thought-out fundraisers I've seen. And again, $42,000 in about an hour's time.
Yeah, our club does, and that might be what you were talking about. We do a thing called Viva, which is it started as phony gaming. you know, with roulette tables and stuff, and a silent auction. And we do, I mean, our little Cambria club does like $40,000 a year. It's amazing.
Wow, that is. Now, what does most of that money go towards?
100% goes, not most, all of it goes to projects.
Go to projects.
Community projects,
Good.
Youth projects, international projects. It's 100% goes to
Good,
that.
good.
The operational part of our club is funded by our dues
Right,
and the members purposely paying operational expenses. The funding is for charitable giving is a whole other arm.
Good, good. Give me a couple of examples of some of the community projects you've been involved with, have done with that money, or anything else with the club.
Well, again, you don't see them. This one that I gave you the photos of is one that's it's kind of dear to my heart. It's a beautification project, basically. In Cambria, downtown Cambria, we have a Veterans Memorial Building, and a couple of Vietnam vets got this idea to do a Rotary Peace Garden. And to me, the concept of doing a Rotary Peace Garden in a Veterans Memorial Building is just absolutely perfect. Because I have a lot of friends that are vets, and I've never met one of them that thinks that war is a good thing.
Yeah.
They're the most peaceful people I know because they've seen war. And we raised the money it was a joint project between the Community Services District, between the American Legion, between the county, and between Rotary. One of the things we do in Rotary is try to partner. And most of the time we're able to grab different people in different, and oftentimes they're Rotarians that are on the city council or whatever it happens to be. And we did the beautification project. That's the Rotary Peace Garden at the Veterans Memorial.
I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Rotary actually has a pretty large impact within communities if done right.
Big time. But often they don't know it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we have to work on. We have to work on telling people what we're doing.
That is one of the hard parts. It seems to be, and hopefully through the TV show like this one here, we can
Thank
get
you.
some of
Thank
the
you
word
guys
out,
for
by the
doing
way. Yeah, I agree. Bruce, your title this year is District Grants Chair.
Yes.
So with that, I'm going to thank you in advance for all the work that you do at that part, making it possible to have all these available to us. And with that, I would like to thank you, thank everybody again for watching. I want to share with you some of the efforts that we as Rotarians do, again, as Bruce says, behind the scene. Take a look and see, when you see that Rotary logo, see what's going on, see what they're doing, and if you have an opportunity, visit one of the clubs and see how they plan, because it's on a weekly basis that we put these together. And with that, thank you very much, and we will see you the next time.
Thank you.